door because they weren't taken care of.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, you can get all that all done.
Yeah.
You got your haircut too.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It's kind of a short one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the
They
layers.
took a whole lot off, actually.
Doesn't that feel good?
Wonderful.
You wash your hair, you're like, oh, where did...
I know, it's like, oh, I only need like that
This is
much
my
shampoo
shampoo.
now.
I should go through
my
my
eyes. That's the only reason I get my hair cut. It's in my eyes.
Yep. Yeah, you just get that. Or you do the self-mutilate, go like that, and you go, oh, what I do. Oh, but your wife does it.
My wife does it, yes. Thank goodness.
I do my husband. We use a, wall shaver because his hair is very short, but one time I completely missed that I didn't have the head on it, and I shaving it went like, I went,
all the way down.
And it was about that long down to his skin, and I went,
Good.
Oh, no. Well, honey, guess what? You got a new haircut.
Yeah.
It's
always fun when my wife says whoops when she's doing things.
Yeah, you're like, what is it?
Yeah, he knew exactly what it meant. And then he goes, that is one jacked up haircut.
That little boy in that
He can
commercial.
start a new style.
A jacked up haircut.
That is one jacked up haircut. I said, oh, thank you. That's for sure. It was just a little cold.
I think we're going to get started.
Okay.
So, today we're going to do functions. We're going to talk about calling them, writing them, and then an example with the bananas again. And then some of our demos. We're already Fahrenheit to Celsius again and speeds again. So, very slight changes on previous programs. Okay, so remember, the last time we did while something is true, do something. And it would do that over and over and over again. And we used, very similar to an if, except you use while, and it just repeats until that something is no longer true. So we always had to make sure that we made that something become false eventually, somehow. And that sometimes takes a bunch of code. So one of the things about ifs and whiles is that we use these curly braces at the beginning and end to tell the compiler, use these statements as part of this if or part of this while, so that it knows which ones to repeat or which ones are only to be done when the if is true. So today we'll cover functions, which allow you to encapsulate code just like ifs and whiles, but instead of ifs and whiles, you can use that code in all kinds of different places. And I'll explain what I mean by that very shortly. So here's an example function where instead of having a bunch of code to set the price of the bananas, we've got this thing here, which we call, and it returns what the price of bananas is in dollars, and then we set it equal to this price of bananas here, that variable. So this is the name of a function that we're going to learn how to write, and this is an argument to that function, giving it something to compute. So all that code that we used to put in our main is now somewhere else, and it gets run when we execute that function. And so the name of the function is banana price dollars. I just made up some silly long name so that it was obvious what it meant. And the argument is num bananas. And you're going to have to get used to some of that terminology. So every function has one or, actually 0 or more arguments. Sometimes you don't even have any arguments, but usually you got 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that. And separate them with commas, like you do when you declare something. No big deal. So this is an assignment like any other assignment statement. And so this thing right here appears to see just like any other double variable. So, right, this thing's a double, the price of bananas. This thing, it takes the place of any other double variable that you'd ever use in any other assignment statement. So you can put a function anywhere you'd use a variable, and it will behave like whatever that return value from that function is. It'll return like it'll behave like a double in this case. So these can go almost anywhere that you would put any other variable.
Is the return value the price underscore banana?
The return, see, the function returns a value, and we assign that value to price bananas.
Okay.
And so it's as if we calculated the price of the bananas, and we got this value sitting right here, and we're assigning it to price bananas. So, this example is for mathy people, so I won't do it. So there's this whole bunch of C code that is getting executed when we call a function. Hey, Liz.
Hi.
And we still have to write it somewhere, but when we're using that function, we don't actually see that code. So this can help make your code more readable. You can have a whole bunch of functions with names that make sense to you. So as you go through your code and you see a function, you know, okay, sure, that function is doing that. And you don't have to worry about exactly how and all the details, and then you just keep going. And later on, you can figure out how to do all the details. So that's important. And it's also different from ifs and whiles in that it's a little easier to put anywhere that you feel like in your code. So that you can have this function, whatever it is, sprinkled throughout your code. It's the use of that function sprinkled throughout your code. And that way, you know that each of those places where you use it in the code, it's actually doing the same thing. And it's whatever it is, it's correct. Instead of having a bunch of code in each of these places instead, and that bunch of code could change inadvertently. So this way, it's always the same hunk of code that's getting executed. And
By using a function.
By using a function. And so every time you use that function, you're using that exact same hunk of code that you use to define that function. And so it'll help you in the future to know that, okay, that function is right. I can build my other code based on that and not worry about that code ever getting changed, screwing things up, whatever. So for example, all these ifs that we've been doing, you could have an if in a function and know that that if is always working instead of repeating the if in your code and perhaps having to change variable names and change other things and have it be wrong, basically. So you can have the function, get that function to work, and you know it's always going to be right. So this is a key simplifier for all of your code. And it's how printf works. Right? We don't have to write printf every time we want to do printf. We just call the printf function. So printf is a function, just like what I'm teaching you here. And so is scanf. Those are functions that, thankfully, somebody else wrote for us, and it does what it needs to do for us. And we don't have to worry about how it does it. It just does it, and we're happy. So that's exactly what the use of functions is in all of our code, is to try to simplify what the heck we're doing. Okay? So, I hope that makes sense. So, here's an example of code that we used in a previous program that calculates the price of bananas given the number of bananas. So it has to be given that in order to be able to return a value for this price of bananas here. And so we will encapsulate that as a function. So what we have to do is we first have to declare the function, then enclose it in curly braces, do stuff, and return a value. Now, that's it very vaguely. So detail by detail. A function, generally, is returning a value. And so we declare it just like we declare a variable. And so this right here is what type that value has to have, and here's the name of that value. So just like a variable, double or int, or character, whatever you want, and then give it some name. Of course, it has to be unique, just like everything else we've been doing. Now the difference is that now we're going to allow it to have this argument. So we have parentheses, and then we have another variable that we, in this case one variable that we declare, saying, okay, this function needs to be told what the number of bananas is in order for it to do what it needs to do. And so when we use it, we need to give it an integer variable so that we can use that variable inside our function to do whatever calculations we need to do. If we didn't do this, it would be pretty boring. Call the function and it just does the same thing over and over again. This way, the function does something useful for us. So, name, yeah, like normal. Alright, multiple arguments separated by commas, if you have them. And you can have a comma here, and then another variable, if you want, and just keep going. Curly braces, just like ifs and whiles, you got to tell the compiler where the start and end of your function is, so that it knows what part of this file, usually this is only part of the file, what part of this file is actually this function. Then, I made a mistake here, so ignore it being here twice. So we need to declare the price of bananas, this value that we're returning here. So just like in main, every variable inside this chunk of code needs to be declared. So we've got known bananas declared up here, so we need to declare price of bananas inside here so that we can then use it. The last interesting thing about functions is that they have to return a value. Most functions anyway, some don't. Printf doesn't actually return a value. Okay? It just prints something. So there's some variety. But very often you have to return a value. And so as the last thing you do, usually, you return and then give it some variable name. This is what becomes the value of a call when you use it in your main program. And so, let me just go back. So in this guy right here, you know, banana price dollars, non-bananas thing, that return statement is putting a value here that you can then assign to this price bananas here. So, that was a heck of a lot of stuff. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions about all this? Because this is a lot of syntax, a lot of weirdities, all kind of put together all at the same time.
Keep going. I
Keep
don't
going?
have an intelligent question for you.
Okay. Yeah. So remember, when you did int main, it looked kind of similar to this. You had int, you had main, you had paren with nothing inside, you had a begin and an end curly brace. So every program you've written so far, which has int main, it's actually a function. So we've been doing this every day, believe it or not. And so, why the heck is that? Why is this program called int main? What is going on there? Well, it turns out that just as we call price of bananas to get the price of the bananas into our variable in our program, the operating system is calling our program with using the word main to call it. So the operating system is really just another program that's calling ours. And it needs to know what ours is called. So they decided to call it main, no matter what. So the operating system calls our program main, and it runs and it returns a value. So just like what we're going to be doing here, calling this function and getting a value, the operating system is doing that to our program. So let's try this. Go ahead and create day 8 and go into it and start a program, call it bananas.c, whatever you want. And the length of our programs is getting longer, so the font is getting smaller. and you'll notice there's a few more comments in this code. Since there's so many of these curly braces, I tend to comment them with what they're ending. Otherwise, it's very easy to get confused. So the double slash says the comment, and then I just say, okay, that curly brace is ending the while loop, the other curly brace is ending the main function, and then this down here, this one's ending our other function. And this is a personal preference of mine. It keeps me from going crazy trying to figure out which curly brace is ending what. I've been using the end so many different things. So if you want, you don't have to have the while in this thing. You can just make it do it once. It's up to you. I'll give you options so that you can customize this as needed.
Give it done.
So we still include standard I/O, which I'm going to explain shortly, believe it or not. And then you'll know everything. Oh, everything you type will no longer be a mystery, like it has been for 7 weeks here.
It's been 7 weeks.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for the undergrad class, it would be week 2.
You know, I have all appreciation for students
Yeah,
with
no,
yeah.
4
And
different
that's
classes.
just one
of this.
class,
I know,
right?
one class, and they
One
got
class.
4 classes?
Yeah, yeah. So that's the biggest issue with them. They got a heck of a lot more to do in a very small amount of time. But of course, in theory, it's all they're doing. In practice, of course, it isn't
They give
really.
me help for my kids run the softball practice.
How dare you have a life outside of school?
It is. That's a lot of work to do.
And some professors, how dare you have a life outside my class?
Yeah. I've just been
I
sleeping
don't care that you've got a final in blah on the same day. Today, and that's that.
Common knowledge that the class each 427 is called each, each 427 is called each 724. 24/7.
Because it's like, 24/7, got it. Because it's just a killer, huh? Is that the VLSI class?
Yes, it is.
Oh yeah, the VLSI class. Oh my God. You actually design and simulate, perhaps even build a real circuit, a real chip with thousands of these gates in it and stuff.
Wow.
And they've got software to help, but oh my God.
I think they do send it out to the building.
Yeah, I think they do.
That's why it's such a time crunch.
Yeah, because they got to get it done in time to get it back and test it, and yeah. So how we doing? Almost typed in?
No.
A bunch of
No.
errors.
Bunch of errors, yes. Well, for this one in particular, don't try to compile it yet.
Oh.
I told you I'd have errors this time, and we do. So wait for me. We will deal with it. The major error that's in here, perhaps other minor errors too. There's a major error in this code, and we'll go over that.
That was Greek to me.
Thank you. Like, you know, we use Concur and all these programs. I'm like, why can't they just make it do that or do this? But I can
You can
kind of
see now
see
why it's
that
difficult.
would be. They always say, no, you can't do that.
Well,
I'm like, well, why not?
you
it would
can
make my life
you
easier
can
if you
do
could do that.
everything. I mean, but it comes down to how much effort. You can do anything you want. As long as it's on a computer, you can do anything you want. Anything.
But-
anything. Anything. And you can't make it massage your feet, but, you know, as long as it's on the computer, it'll do anything you want. It just comes down to how clever you are to get it to do it. So you'll notice I tweaked the code a little bit here. It's an if-else instead of 2-if, which is the easier way of writing it and making sure it's right. So how are we doing? All typed in?
We're close.
Almost.
Give me a second. I'm getting there.
I keep putting n plus n plus 1 instead of n equals n plus 1.
Yeah.
Like, I've done that with every single one. I don't know why.
We all have our issues. I have things where if I capitalize something, the next one's capitalized, even if I don't want it to be, because I don't
Just happens.
unshift quick enough or whatever.
Everyone knows that when he texts Karen, he probably never uses
Oh.
capital letters. Jeff Foster.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, there's a beauty in that.
Yeah.
You know? I'm always like wanting to. Oh, that should be capitalized, but I'm like, it doesn't really matter. I know what he's telling me.
Yeah,
He doesn't have to
exactly.
capitalize his last name. I
Yeah.
know who he is, regardless
Yeah,
if it's
definitely.
capitalized or not. Like, there's
That's
simple.
right.
I used to do that.
I'm sure
and
he's
I had
simple.
a professor complain to me about it, and so I
So
stopped.
now
So
it's
you
on
learned.
your radar, like, oh, I don't want to
Now I
have someone else
capitalize.
complain.
Yeah.
So how we doing?
Well, it's
Almost?
in. I
It
haven't
is.
done
I'm
any.
just double
Okay.
I haven't done any
Okay,
editing.
so
But
go ahead and try to compile. Yeah, definitely save it. So, okay, we got conflicting types for price of bananas.
Yep.
To be hopefully nothing else.
Oh,
Conflicting types for price of bananas, good.
what did I? Is that what I got?
That's exactly what you should be getting.
Okay, banana. Or the dollar.
Yeah, that's okay.
Man, there it is.
Okay, we got a few extra errors here. Let's deal with it.
Yeah, that's what. Be a bunch
line
of typos.
15. Go to line 15 for me.
Oh, and you told me how
Just
to
click. And it says
Oh,
that's 13. So, double price of bananas, you've got your code starting with an end curly brace. It should be a start
Oh.
curly brace.
Nope,
The
nope,
other
nope.
one.
Yep.
There you go. Save it. Try compiling it again. Okay. conflicting types for price of bananas.
There's
What the
only one
heck is
type of
going
it.
on? Now, this is a crazy error, right? It doesn't really mean anything to anybody, I imagine.
I'm just happy I only had one typo.
Yeah, you did good.
Well,
You did good.
I'm really trying to
Less than I did.
think
You're-
about what I'm typing.
Yeah, and
like
you're
saying,
understanding
okay,
what you're doing, right?
I'm trying. Yeah.
You
trying
kind of
very
have a
hard.
clue as to what the heck's going on in C.
So yeah, I have a
what the
second.
heck is going
I
on?
have 3 errors
You have
total.
more than-
But I
okay,
have that one. But then I also have.
Price bananas undeclared. Oh, because it's
Mm-hmm.
misspelled.
Well, I
It's
did
good
the
to
misspelling.
see.
I fixed
that.
that.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, I fixed
I did
that.
just
Go ahead,
graduate, so I'm kind of used to
save.
classes.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I can tell.
Yeah, just save.
Thank you.
Okay, it's
So
saved.
it's saved. You just
Yeah.
not just compile it.
It's been many years since I
Oh.
went to school.
Did
you go to U of M?
Alright, wait. So I should be able to.
I even got in and everything.
Okay.
It's hard to
Okay.
get in.
So, we all have the same
I know, I
error.
was
Conflicting types for price of bananas. Note, the previous implicit declaration of price of bananas was here. What the heck's on line 11? Where's that? So that says, let's see, yours perhaps is line 8.
Okay.
So whichever line it happens to be.
Okay.
And it will be the line where you called it. So you don't have a declaration there, do you? You have an assignment there, not a declaration. So what the heck is it talking about? We didn't declare it. Well, note the word implicit. You didn't declare it, it did. The implicit declaration means it looked at this thing and said, oh gee, I gotta give it a type, so it gave it a type. Every time it sees a function, it needs to have a return type so that it can do the assignment stuff the right way. So what we did was we called it, but we did not declare to the compiler what the return type was until later. See, the compiler goes through and it goes, okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, these things are ints, these are doubles. And what the heck is this? It doesn't know yet. It hasn't gotten to here. So it doesn't know what the return type of this function is. So, in its wisdom, it decides it's an int. That is the default. And it just keeps going. And it's a dumb thing to do, but that's what it does. So then it keeps going, then it keeps going, then it keeps going. It's fine. Okay, we've defined main. Oh, now we've got double price of bananas. But wait a minute. I already decided it was an int. You're telling me it's a double? So it complains. So this is what C does. It's dumb, but that's what it does. So what we have to do is we have to tell it what the return type is before we use it. And the way to do that is to declare it before we do int main. So this is a little teeny piece of the code. So right before int main, we put this, which is basically the first line of our function with a semicolon after it instead of a begin curly brace. So this is what is called a function declaration as opposed to a variable declaration. And normally we do a function declaration outside of main and outside of everything else. So we put it right before main and try compiling again.
Oh yeah, those were some ones.
And you must be very careful to put that semicolon. So outside of main, take a look. Before
Oh,
main.
gotcha.
And we gotta, ideally we include just the entire first line of the function, including the int num bananas aspect of things, and then that semicolon. So this is telling the compiler, no, we want price of bananas to be a double, not an int. So the next time you see price of bananas, you'll know it's a double, and not do something stupid. So, is that working? Yes? Yes?
Do we need to have it twice then? Do we need to have it again in the second part?
We do.
Okay.
So, they compile.
Yeah, when it's mean number of bananas.
It's
And
asking
it's
you.
giving me
All
price.
right.
Yep.
So, how are we doing, Karen? Compiling?
No, but it may be because I'm missing a word.
That would help.
See? If it does or not. Yep. Price banana is undeclared first use in this function. Line 21.
Yes. Every variable in a function has to be declared. So price bananas needs to be declared as double before your if statement. Take a look in the code. We had double price bananas here before the if statement.
Gotcha.
So one thing about functions is that, generally speaking, a function knows nothing about anything else in the code. Okay? Function is a hunk of code all to its own. So just because, let's say you have price bananas declared up here, it has nothing to do with price bananas down here. This function does not know this even exists. And so it's a completely separate variable that needs to be declared and used completely on its own as compared to this main function or any other function. And this is a key simplifier to our code. Because if we had to look everywhere in our file to make sure that we weren't using the same variable name and some other function, we'd drive ourselves crazy. So between here and here, that's all it knows about, that's all we have to care about to make this function work. Everything outside it, ignore it, forget it, it's irrelevant. Okay, everybody got it running? Running?
Is it supposed to do that?
Well, whatever, you know.
Well, I gave it 5 different answers and it quit telling me
So,
it said
no,
command
yeah.
not found
Do
because
the-
we'd only said 5. I just was
Command
playing.
not found.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I answered it 5 different
I see.
times.
Well, I think
Yeah,
I
that
did
works.
Right.
something wrong. Because when I do... Oh, okay. I typed it in there. That's what happened. I used this to type in a number for
Right,
and it
so
came
you
out
got
like
gibberish.
That, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
is this
So the stinking keyboard.
Oh, the number key.
Yeah, I used this
I
and
know.
I was like, what is that mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to not.
Yeah, you gotta avoid that part of the keyboard. I tell you, computers, they're so sensitive.
I know they. But it says it.
So just think, somebody wrote a program to make this keyboard work. And for some reason they didn't include this.
Well,
So this is a
engineer,
lesson.
mechanic.
This is a lesson that the software that you depend on is written by somebody, and it doesn't necessarily work the way you want it to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why you want to learn how to program.
Right.
Get what you want, among other reasons. So, okay, exercises.
Wait.
These are tweaks of previous programs, so you don't have to type in the whole program again. You can take one of these old programs and rework it to be a function instead of
Why is my permission
one
denied?
main program.
I think I'm obviously running it incorrectly.
All right, let's see. Yeah, /day8 is the way you run it. Day8.c
So I
is the program.
did that
So,
one.
yeah, and it didn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah. I would say that for your while loop to work, the value of n must be less than 5 before the loop starts.
Oh.
So you have to set the value of n, in this case, I would set it to 0 right before that while statement.
Okay.
Otherwise, it won't do anything, and that's what you'll get.
Okay.
Your program will finish without saying anything.
Alright.
It's very non-conversational.
Well, no wonder I don't understand it.
Yeah, code.
So one thing you can do, Shelley, is go to your
go to your terminal.
Okay.
LS. Say cd dot dot slash. Space dot dot slash. Now say return. Now say LS.
Nobody can remember how to get stuff, huh?
So say, now say LS space
Okay.
day asterisk. And it's going to show you the contents of every directory that starts with day. So now hit return. Okay, so that's a lot, but if you
That's
pull
what I was
this
trying
down,
to-
right, if you pull this down, you'll be able to see all of your, and some of them are named something that means something, so then you can find where they are. So this one's in day 5.
So I can go over here.
So mine says segmentation fault.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my!
Way to go.
So I got the how many bananas.
Okay, a lot of times a segmentation fault is something like dividing by 0.
A segmentation fault is the standard error you get when you run a program and you screwed up big time.
It can't confuse.
Okay.
So let's see. So, if you go look at my code and compare it to yours,
Okay.
that's probably the
So-
best place to begin.
Okay, so you found where everything is. So if
Where is
you,
it?
if you say,
Okay.
email
Okay,
any of
so,
these files to see what's in them, and then you can also paste those. And you have to use the directory, because each of these is under a directory of this.
Okay.
So you can say email day 7 slash whatever.
Okay.
this is more functions than
Okay.
Okay, so that is.
So there was
that's your
another one
output.
open at
Oh,
one
you want to do that
But
C?
Yeah, you want to do
Okay,
that.
well, I will tell you.
Okay.
You forgot an and right here.
Oh.
Whenever you do scanf, you gotta use that and.
Okay.
Okay, so now there's that.
And,
you can actually cut and paste it into another file
If you want, I
or
can
you can-
explain
And you can,
what it did
Well,
without the
it
and.
might
Should I
be
save it as a
helpful.
different thing?
Without the and,
Okay.
it is trying to, alright, so what the and says is, this is where you want to put the value that you read in. And this is where has to be a place in memory.
Okay.
And to be a place in memory, you have to precede the variable name with an and. Otherwise, if you just have a variable name, it's a value, not a place in memory. So the and makes it a place.
Okay.
So it tried to put it in a place that was the value of that variable, and that place
blew
was
up.
not a good place to put it. It was a bad place.
Oh.
Put it where the sun don't shine.
Okay.
So that's all that is.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So how we doing? We copied files from previous days. That worked out?
Oh, I'm just tweaking them. I guess I didn't realize I
No,
was doing that.
it's okay.
But I guess that's,
You can tweak and save to something called different, and that's the same as copying.
Whatever works.
And it's okay to actually do it to the same file, because it's not like you're ever going to go back to it again.
Probably not.
Well, I'm actually looking back at other things to pull them, you know? So what's the difference between that and that?
Okay. Remember, when you compile a
so
program,
for my function, yeah, so for here, you
the
used an if
compiler
statement.
reads
but
the
you
.c
can
file
turn it into a
and
function.
creates
So
another
if you
file
call
that
it,
will actually run on your
Okay.
computer.
if you
So
call
the
the
C file is
function
just a bunch of text,
Okay.
and the only people
Because this is what I got to
text
share
type
what's
now,
in that
my
is you
function,
and
correct?
the compiler.
So if you call
Okay.
the function.
So you cannot run a
That.
C file.
Okay. Okay.
Computer
Okay.
needs the output of the compiler.
Text rate.
Right.
It can run that.
So double tax rate.
And
Okay.
put all of this into the function tax rate.
And it's garbage. It's gibberish,
Right, I
right?
see that, yes,
It
I
makes
see
no
that.
sense to us, but it
Wait.
makes sense to the
Right.
computer.
it's going to return something. So that's what you have to, let's see. So what is it returning? You're passing it the salary, and it's returning the tax rate. So maybe you call your function something else than tax rate. Maybe you call it
What tax rate?
or
Calc tax rate.
calc
Yeah,
tax.
calc
or
tax
something.
rate.
Calc
Whatever
tax.
you want, yeah. But something
No
different than
space.
the variable name that you want to put it in. And this is key, right? I mean, I was very careful to make this variable name be different than this function name, even though they're basically the same thing.
But you don't want to confuse
But they
yourself.
have to be different. Otherwise, the compiler won't know what the heck
So,
you're talking about.
and what you have to think when you're writing the functions is, what am I going to return? You know, what am I going to get in the function, and what am I going to return?
Yeah.
So what are you going to get when you enter the function?
The tax rate. Or it's returning the tax
It
rate.
returns the tax rate. What
But
does
what
it
does
need
it
to know
receive?
in order to
It needs to know my
calculate the
salary.
tax rate?
So it needs the
It needs the
salary.
salary.
So that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're writing your function. What are you receiving and what are you sending back?
And this is all about making things simpler for you. If you can write functions that take in one or two things and return back stuff and do all this calculation in between, you can avoid thinking about the rest of your code. It's irrelevant. If you can get that function to work, you've figured out part of your code and you can put it aside once it works and then work on another piece. Because you
And then when you're
can't
writing-
keep it all in your head.
And when you're writing programs, that piece of code which you know is working is like a black box then.
Yeah.
That you just put in there.
Away you go.
It's like, I'm going to put this in, I'm going to get this out. It's a black box, I don't have to think about it.
If you had to write printf, what's inside the code for printf, every time you wrote a program, you'd never ever finish a program.
Right.
Right? So somebody else wrote it, it's done, you don't even care what's in it. As long as it works. And eventually you care what's in it, but only if you're doing crazy stuff.
Only if you're new one. I truly don't care.
I'll admit, I wrote my own printf, I'm crazy.
It seems like I should be doing this in front of here.
Well, what's going to happen is this is actually going to be a part of this and be removed from here, and you're going to call it.
I just copied the
Okay,
old
that's
one.
what, that's hard to
You're
wrap your head
replacing
around.
it, yeah. Now, try doing this. Try doing this. Try
So yeah,
cutting
think about
and
it. When you have a
pasting all of
function,
this down to here.
This right here?
it
Uh-huh.
needs to get something
Put it down here.
from the guy that's calling it,
Just
and
to
it
stuff
needs to
it. We're just
return
gonna
something
stuff
to
it
the guy
down
that's
there.
calling it. And what it needs from the guy that's calling it is
Now,
probably
remove
just
it
one
from up
number.
here.
In the cases I'm
You're
giving you,
gonna
it
just totally
needs one
remove it.
number in order to do those calculations. So what is
And
that
then what
number?
we're going to do
And what
is make
did
it
you
work
call that
down
variable?
here. Okay, so you've got
Because it
this.
seems like that would,
Then that
this would
variable
take the place of
and that
this.
function.
Yeah,
So it
what
can
what
use-
you've done is you've gotten the gist of it, and now you have to make sure it works correctly as a function.
So I
So you
can
sort
say
of put the
return.
meat in there, and now you have to make sure it's carved correctly.
Alright, so, look here, mister.
So you want me to go all the way to the these again?
Yeah.
Now, this is a difficult lesson today. This is a lot of stuff
This
to
is a
figure
tough
out,
one.
and this is at the heart of C. This is how everything is organized in C, and we will spend more time on this because it's so important.
Okay.
Well, remember that you're spelling this directly, Shelley.
Yeah, because it's not recognizing text 5.
Did you call it a new thing?
I didn't.
Okay, so
So where did you put it?
here's where it is. It's still under
Oh.
day 5.
Yeah. Emacs pretty much tells you where things are.
Yeah, it was still under day
Oh, no,
5. So go
so-
ahead
that went away.
go
So
ahead
you
and
need your shell to be day 5.
save as. Okay.
Or save it
So
to day
it's in folder day 5 right now.
Mhm.
So now you can save it to day 8 if you want.
Because it would recognize it there.
Sits. So up here. How'd you do that?
I don't know.
Oh, go ahead. Now, put
Oh,
in day 5, day 8.
day 8.
And now say save. Okay. Okay, so now you're in,
Now go to your shell and do an ls, see if
yeah,
it's there.
say okay.
So just simply LS.
Yeah,
Oops.
let's see if
Not
you're,
with my email.
okay, say CD day 8, because we did switch out
Ah,
of
that's
that.
right.
But that's okay, we still weren't where we wanted to be. Now let's do LS. Now you see it.
Oh, I have to tell it to do everything.
I know, computers are like
know.
that.
Ridiculous,
My
isn't it?
kids are like,
Yeah, it assumes some stupid things, but when you want it to assume good things, it doesn't do it. Yeah, pretty much gotta tell it everything.
Oh,
No
yeah.
chance.
oh, lost.
Okay.
So how we do?
Drinking in what the variety of things were here that I need.
So what you want to do is you
I
want to
don't think
take
that's right,
this
but why
and
is
turn
it
into a function.
Double tax
You wanna
rate.
I mean, if I'm
Remove
trying
it from where it
to
is and turn it into
make it
a
a
function.
function.
Okay,
So
you're trying
the
to make it a
first
function.
thing you do
So,
is just put
what
the
is
return
what does
in
a
there.
function need in order to calculate the tax
Like,
rate?
just return, just how you like. So now we're gonna ignore all of that
A number.
and just
It
work on
needs
this.
the salary.
What was
right?
the rules
And it needs
for creating a
these
function?
Right.
You had to have-
these rate things.
Right.
You had
Now
to
the rate
have
things are in the
declaration
code and all those
name,
ifs.
Right.
And then you
Salary,
had to declare
you
what
gotta
you were
send
returning
it
on the
to it.
statement.
Okay.
Okay.
So start
So
with
the
that.
salary
And that's what I
is
did.
the1
That's what I just
Okay.
entered.
argument that you
Okay.
have to send
So-
out.
Because I
Okay.
was taking one.
Highlight that
Is it
again.
double though?
Copy it.
What does
Take
double
it right
mean
where you
in terms of
How
code?
do you?
It means
Go to edit.
it's a variable that has a fractional part.
Copy.
Which
So-
it
Okay.
doesn't, does
So
it?
basically, it depends on you.
Okay, so
Okay.
now.
I allowed
if
you
you're
to
supposed
write it
turn
in
into a
different
function,
ways. So in this case, you've got salary as a double.
You
Right.
have to
So I
have
would
the
leave it as double.
parentheses
Send
that
it as a-
enclose your function.
Argument with the double.
Go back to the sheet page, because I can't remember this off the top of my head.
You can do anything you want. You have
yeah.
power.
So that's what it's
But
So you
if
want to
it's
make
a
it
double
look
already,
like
leave it as a
Okay.
double.
All right.
So here's your parentheses.
So, and then the other
and you
pieces
have
that I
the
need
meat
to
of it,
include,
and
so
then
you
you
kind
have
of
the
talked
end
about it. How do I
function.
do
You bet.
that? And I'm doing
So,
You bet, I
make it
understand.
look like
So-
that.
So we need
So
to define a function
Okay.
that returns a tax rate
Okay.
given a salary.
Okay.
So you want double
Tax rate.
tax rate
Okay.
and then double salary.
And not int.
Not
double?
int.
Okay.
You want it to be double. So you want to give it a double that's the salary, and you want to return a double that's the tax rate. So you want to change salary there to tax rate.
Oh. Say it again.
So make salary,
No, I mean, not,
tax rate.
but
So-
explain it.
So we have a function
Okay,
that is
so
supposed
again,
to
when you're doing a
calculate the
function,
tax
tax
rate
rate,
for
think
us.
about
And
it.
it needs to
What's
know
your
what our
purpose?
salary
It
is
sends to your
in order to
function,
do that.
and what does it want
Gotcha.
returned?
So now,
Oh, I want
alright,
to
you can copy this
Yep.
Okay.
down to here and start your actual code for your function.
Down to where?
Down to
After the-
beyond the bottom of your name.
We're putting in this,
Oops.
You're going to get
I always
this
put a
up.
bunch of spaces.
Mhm.
I put in there.
So the other thing is,
Which one am I doing again? That
So
whole
for
thing?
now, before you do anything,
Yeah.
you don't want to
go
put
down
it
here
in your
Yeah.
function. All you want to do
and
is
just
you
put in a
wanna
whole bunch of
receive
blank
Okay.
data
lines.
and
then go up
calculate it
here.
and send
Yeah.
back data.
I think
Okay.
let's
So
look at the whole thing.
now
Okay.
what you do is you
So
look
then-
at, okay, do I have the format of the function correct? And then you look and say, is the function doing what I want it to do? So those are the two things you have to figure out for the function.
You gotta get rid of this and
And when you're done with the function, then we go back to the
Rid of that.
program
Okay.
then you gotta
and
start and
make
end
sure
your
the program
function
is calling the
with these
function.
curly braces.
Okay.
Then you can start putting stuff inside your function. So basically, you need all
So
these.
I'm calling,
They're all calculating the tax rate.
it's not this.
Okay, so your function is called
So we're
tax rate.
grabbing
Good.
things. I don't know if
You're
you
passing it in,
We
into
grab
with the
things.
salary.
We outline it like that, and then we hit
Okay,
Okay. Yeah, we don't do that on that.
it's,
and yeah, we
That's
can-
Other part, that
you
would be
can
the
of
price
course
finance
do.
Right.
yep,
part.
the tax rate is gonna be equivalent to the price of the
So we copied and we pasted.
Yeah.
And now we have the
make sure
basic
your
code that we need in order to
declarations are all correct.
figure out what the
Remember,
tax rate is.
any declaration that
Okay.
happens in the program,
So
the function doesn't
what else do we
know
need
about
to
it.
do to make this
So you have to make sure all of your declarations have been.
One, we need
done.
to declare variables that we're using
I didn't
inside
declare
here
salary
that
down.
aren't declared
You
here
did, right?
and aren't declared here. And
Okay.
aren't declared anywhere up here.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
Now,
this is because
tax rate is the
they
name of the function.
re-declare price finance.
Okay,
Um,
then go ahead.
Oh, so I need to
Call
declare
it-
tax rate, so
Okay.
that.
needs to be if can't call it something.
So once you feel like your function is correct in form and also in content,
Now inside
then we
here,
go back to the program
Yeah.
and make sure
this
that the
is
program
variable
calls it
salary, you
correct.
find it there, that's fine.
Because
This is
before,
variable
the
called
program
tax
was
rate,
doing
which
everything
is not
itself. Now
defined
we're going
anywhere
to call
inside
this
our
function and we have to make sure
And we need
that
to
something gets
declare.
returned back to this
Declare
part of the
things.
program and
Declare.
used.
So double space tax rate, semicolon.
Okay.
All right, so now we declared tax rate as a double. Now, the function needs to return a double. It needs to return a value that's a double, which in this case
So how do you call your
is
function?
variable here. So right here, let's do a
Yeah,
return
where's the
space
part
tax
where
rate.
you call your function, where you call calculate?
Literally return?
Okay.
Return space tax rate.
That's where you declare it.
I
Oh,
thought
this
we
is
did
it.
that. Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every function has to
So
do
then you
that,
do have
and
to
Okay.
get them out so
now
that
that
you
will
know what
actually
you're
return
doing.
the value of that variable to wherever in
So those
here
things that
we
we
use
remove from the
cal
function
tax rate.
actually
Now we
mean
need to use,
paste
you
them
know,
into that.
we need to use this function.
Okay.
So how do we
That's okay, you
use
can
this
redo it.
function? So in the
Okay.
while loop,
So what
we
is it that you want to
got
see?
the
You know what you
percentage
put
of salary,
in.
then right here
You
we
put
use
in the
calculate
salary. What
it,
is
and
it
then
that
here
you
We
want
want
to
to see the
we
tax
print it.
rate.
Okay.
So instead of calculating it with all that
We
code,
want it to
we're
do
going to call the function. So calling the function
calculated tax.
involves
tax.
setting the value of the function equal to a variable. So
And then we need
tax
to
rate is a local variable. Calling the function
That's the call
involves
thing, isn't it?
writing its name.
You
with a
have
bunch of
called it here, so what you did when you called
a bunch of
this
parameters.
function right here,
So there's
calc
the name.
tax rate,
Okay.
it returned
There's
into
how to
here.
call it
So
without
your
any
tax rate in this part
variables,
now,
without any parameters.
what
So what
this
do
is
we want to give it for parameter? It needs
so by calling
It
it
needs the
here
salary
with
that we
your
just
salary,
read in.
it stuffs it into the tax rate.
parameter. So let's
Okay,
give
so I
it
don't
that.
even do these percentage.
And now that
For
should
the prefix
calculate
you
the
do.
tax rate
Oh,
for whatever the user entered as a salary. And then it's printed.
Okay, where you at? Well, I've been changing some things in here.
Mhm.
It gave me
Okay.
some N is not right,
Save
so I
it.
went N tax
Okay.
rate. And
Compile
I did
it.
an N less than 3, because it said
Alrighty.
to do it less than 3 times.
You don't have to
Only
type
but
it
3
again if
times
you don't
some.
want
So I don't know if
to.
that's even
But
right.
you
Okay.
never
Do
did
this
tell it
up
what
arrow
N
here.
was.
Okay.
Go ahead, hit it.
Yeah, well, in N,
You declare it, but
Alright,
you don't,
ignore the stupid done
you
thing.
don't
So-
assign a value to it.
It actually compiles.
okay,
let's
so
try
in
running
N
it.
is wrong then. Okay.
No, intent is correct, because you have to declare it, but you also have to set a value
Got
to
you.
it.
And
You have to assign a
that's
value
right.
to it.
And that's not
Okay.
doing it right
Yeah.
here?
Dot C is
It's not
for you.
assigning the
Gotcha.
tax?
Well, the C is for the computer.
Because
Okay.
I got it to ask me the
Go ahead,
salary, but it
enter
wouldn't do
salary.
anything.
Right.
And then when I got the 12,000, it gave me
Whatever.
0%.
Mhm.
13,000, 0%, but it wouldn't,
So, you
you know, it kind of...
what you're saying right here is, well, N is less than 3, but
We're
what is
doing
it?
real well. Okay. Control
The
C.
tax rate.
But what did you set
Okay.
it to?
So, what the heck happened?
Then you gotta set it.
All right.
Maybe
Step
I
number
put
one.
the
Well,
wrong-
N
So
N
is
is less
3.
than...
So you should probably
But we
say
don't
N
ever set N
is
inside here. So N is
either
all
1
this.
or 0. N
So
equal 1
let's
or N equal
set
0.
N.
Instead of N being less than 3?
No,
That way we know how many times we've done
before you get to the while, you have to say what the value of that is.
Oh, so I need
So
to
it-
insert a whole row and say N,
N
oh, equals something.
What else do we
N
need to
equals
do?
C.
Well, let's try
Let's
that
see.
and see what we get.
Well, how come that's not set there?
Pile, and then run.
He doesn't set
There
the
you go.
value of N equal either.
Whatever you want.
Down here.
Well, he increases
Yeah,
it, but he
that's
never
35.
sets it.
Looks good. Try again.
I think you have to say N
Is that
equals
right? 15, 35?
1.
Let's see.
Might be
Oh, I know.
And then
according to
it
what I
can-
put in
The
there.
way you got it, the
Try that.
salary
Try
is
recompiling it.
in
You need,
thousands of dollars already.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Oh, my
Semicolon.
So you have to make sure that you don't
Gotcha.
add those
Try
3
saving
extra
it.
zeros.
Gotcha.
And then let's
Okay.
look at
So
what's
for
in
20 it's
recompile
20.
it.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe it is according to what I said.
Yeah, try it. Yeah.
So if
definitely.
it's
less
less
than
than,
20,
right,
it's 0.
right.
So try
Did you GCC
15.
again?
Yep.
Oops. It finished running. It only ran 3
Gotcha.
times and then it stopped. So try running it
Gotcha.
again.
Oh.
There you go.
So it gives it to me in lower numbers, but not those higher.
Yeah.
0. Good.
Okay.
Okay, so something is wrong with your function.
35.
So-
20.
Let's see, what are we doing here?
70 is 35.
70,
That would be
35.
it then, right?
Looks good.
Yay.
Success.
Yeah, so enter the salary,
So,
scan it in.
Okay.
it's after 1.
Alright.
So you don't have to do
Oh,
both
okay.
of them today.
Here's the problem.
But,
So what you
so,
want to do
did that make
is
sense?
It
this,
helps.
this
so
while
we'll write
should
more.
actually
We'll,
be,
Okay.
we'll slowly get used
calling
to it
your
by writing more
Alright.
and more.
Yeah.
this,
It will. And I need a
this
cheat sheet.
salary should be down here in your function. And after
Yeah,
you scan it,
cheat
you
sheet.
should be calling it.
Professors always have the students make their own cheat
And
sheet.
do the
have to do
function.
It's all in the PDF.
So this
Did
is
they, has
statement
any, that site
should be
that you
down here as
included on
part of
here,
this
on the top of the
function.
resource of me?
And where the if
Is that,
statement is,
do you
you
find
should
that
be
of any
calling
value?
the
Would I find that of any value?
It's a
And you
way of
call the
programming
function-
without having to be here.
just like
So
this.
you could do everything
is
you've done so
calling-
far, I
This price
think,
bananas
or
is
maybe not.
calling the
Maybe
function,
it wants to do the input.
okay? So you need
But
to call your
all the stuff
function
without the input
from
should
this
work on that
part.
side.
And this is the function.
Including functions.
And this if part should be part of your function. You shouldn't have an if in your main part anymore,
Okay.
okay?
So how are we doing?
Everyone's making progress.
Well, getting there slowly.
This is tough stuff.
It is.
It's very tough stuff.
No, I know.
Well, I just try to go base, just copy
Right.
that into what I think
Right.
it's,
This
You know,
is a-
plug my stuff into
This is a
the-
big leap here.
okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, it is.
It'll give me tax for 20,000 a month, so, but nothing else.